We are the wind in the sails of your business. We are your compass. Chart your course towards your targets. Africa Business Radio. Towards a profitable Africa.
Africa is rising, they say. But Africa must rise with its people. There is no Africa without its people. How then do we harness Africa's wealthy people? Through social change and development. Social Conscience with NASA commits to Aspiration 6 of the Africa Agenda 2063 and the Global Development Goals. We advocate social change and development that will inspire the transformation that keeps Africa rising. Join us every week at 6:30 p.m. GMT +1.
Welcome, Toby, and thank you for accepting to share your experience with Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the world. Please go ahead and share with us your SARS experience in 2019, I believe it was.
Hi, Nasa. Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, so this subject of discussion basically resonates with me because it was actually a bad experience that year. And to start with, it happened in Lagos Island. I was in my family house, and all I did that evening, I can remember, it was 9 p.m. at night, and then I came out of the house. I went to a convenience store like 2 houses away, and I came out. The next thing that happened was a guy grabbed my pants with my belt, and I didn't see anybody around him. I was like, yo, like, what's going on? What are you trying to do? He didn't say anything. He kept on holding on tight, and before I knew it, in just like 30 seconds, I could see like 5 to 6 big guys with guns, not putting on police uniforms. They were looking rough. They were oozing of alcohol and all. And I was like, why are you holding my belt? He didn't say anything. Then the other guys just came up to me and everything became rough. And they were trying to jack me. One other guy was punching me at the back. And this was on my street. So a lot of people actually know me, and they were coming towards us, and when they realized that people were coming towards us, they were panicking, they became scared, and people were trying to appeal to them, saying, this is not someone you can actually harass because everyone knows me to be who I am around. But they weren't listening to anybody at that particular time, and when they saw that the numbers were growing, people were coming closer, they started shooting their guns in the air. I think it was about like 8-9 times, because at this time, I didn't know what to do. I showed them my ID card. I was like, introduced myself and all. I think the leader of the gang actually took my ID card. Yes, he broke it into two. At that point, I was like, yes, this is real and this is actually happening now. And they didn't actually listen to what anyone had to say. They shot in the air. That scared everyone away. And in seconds, they threw me into their bus, and then off we went. At this point, I was amazed. I was shocked. I didn't even know what to do. And I was going with them. And yeah, so on the way to the station, they picked up, I think, 7 other people. I think 2 ladies and, 5 other guys. And yeah, so I was trying to observe everything that was going on. I was looking around in that bus. It was actually a white Toyota Hiace bus. I was looking around, trying to know what was going on, if these people were actually rogues or thugs. Truthfully, I saw clean people in the bus, and they were trying to appeal to them in that same bus that, oh, you picked me up wrongly, you didn't even ask me who I was or for me to identify myself. They weren't listening to anybody, and there I was in the bus trying to appeal to them, saying, you picked up the wrong person, you didn't even ask me anything, you didn't ask me to identify myself, just assaulted me all of a sudden. Between them, they were like, oh, look at this one speaking English, look at this one speaking English. You go know when we station. At that point, I just stopped talking because I knew it was real and it was going down, because I had never really experienced something that deep in my life before. And yeah, So I got to the station with them and they marched everybody down. And then I remember I actually wore a yellow Nike tracksuit. Now today, with all what is going on, it actually makes a lot of sense to me, putting on a yellow tracksuit at night on the island. And I'm sure they just saw that, oh, this guy was flashy and all. Going back to my story, we got to the station. They marched all of us down. They were assaulting some other guys. They marched us in. They didn't put us in any cell at first. They were asking for our names and all that. I didn't say anything because at this point, I'm sure, a lot of people were trying to make calls and get me out and all that. And I was there, saying nothing. While I was there, a lot of the other colleagues came in, I think, from their other jobs and everything. And they all started speaking in broken. Everywhere was smelling. I was even shocked because I wasn't sure where I was because it looked very dirty with no signage outside saying, oh, police station. All I saw was a very rough special anti-robbery squad. And I was like, where are they taking me to? And then all of a sudden, I started to remember all the stories I had heard and everything. I was just praying to God that, man, this must turn out good because it wasn't really a good experience. And then they put us one side. Some guys came in and they were holding guns too, and they didn't look like police officers. They all looked rough with big tattoos and very dirty ones. And I was like, even if you are going to have this, it should be well arranged and look tidy and look nice and everything. And with their looks, they just kept looking at me like, oh, you're in for it, you're in for it. And I said, where you picked me up was beside my house. I was trying to explain that I just came out to buy something. They said, no, we will take you to Ikeja tomorrow morning. We will arraign you at the court. We will put lots of cartridges in your front and guns and everything. And I was like, I think you're talking to the wrong person. One guy in particular kept saying, you're in trouble today. We would arraign you. They were trying to intimidate me and everything. All I kept saying was, I'm the wrong person. Let me make a call. Let me make calls. At this point, people started trooping in. One guy actually came in. I was saying, oh, I'm looking for this person. So I already knew that, people were making calls outside to try to get me out. But right then and there, none of the SARS officials knew me. And one other thing they did was, I got there with the other guys, they told us to sit on the floor. And at that time, they had already criminalized us because sitting on the floor makes you look like, oh, you did something wrong. And they told us to pull off our shirts. The guys that came in, that didn't know who we were or where they brought us from, hit me on the face, hit me on my right eye. I still have that scar visible by my right eyebrow today. And then, yeah.
Toby, did they ask you any questions? So this was just you at this place. It was some dingy place. It was dark, it was smelly, it was dirty, and there were people who just didn't even look like police officials. Did they ask you any questions?
No. So
they just kept accusing you?
No. So they didn't ask many questions. What I kept hearing was, oh, we picked them up from a job we went to do. That's what I kept hearing. And they didn't ask me any questions. We were the one, along with the other guys that they picked up, we were the ones trying to engage them, saying, this is who I am, this is my name, this is what I'm doing. You picked the wrong person, and they didn't want to listen. At every point in time where I was trying to actually explain myself, the guy was just shouting at me back saying, shut up. You're doing like you have big body. You're doing like you're macho, Abi. We will arraign you tomorrow morning. He kept mentioning, would arraign you, would put cartridges in your front, guns in your front. I was like, what is this? At this point, I didn't know what was happening. I was feeling tired, I was feeling stressed. And from the heat that the guy that came in did on my face, blood started gushing out. So at this point, imagine you having blood all over your body, you're sitting on the floor, the shirt I had on was used to stop the bleeding. So anybody looking at that kind of person would be like, yeah, this is a criminal.
Would actually have thought you were a criminal.
Exactly. So the first thing they would do is they would criminalize you over there, then and there.
Wow. Okay, Toby, so what happened after this whole experience? So how did you get somebody to get you out of there? Because you didn't have your phone, did you?
Yeah. So I didn't have my phone. So what happened was, because where they picked me and some other guys up from was beside my house. So a lot of people already saw me there. And later I actually...
But they didn't know where they were going.
No, exactly. But you know, people can ask around and so on. So I can remember vividly that I think this happened around 9 p.m. And when I eventually got out, I think it was around 1:30 a.m. So that's like 4 hours interval, and I didn't know time had gone that much because I was just in there. And yeah.
So how did you get out of there?
Yeah, so gradually I began to see people I knew. I saw someone coming rather, and then he said, "Oh, I'm looking for Toby." And before I knew it, like 5 minutes later, yeah, my brother-in-law came in with his brother. Then I just started crying inside of me.
So your brother-in-law came in. I'd just like to hear a bit of how that happened. So I know, because obviously I am aware of this story as well. There was obviously calls made to different people, and that's because your people knew people.
Yes.
So that I wasn't aware. The other people, yeah.
Yeah. So when they were making all these calls, obviously I wasn't aware at the moment. So the next thing I just saw was my brother-in-law and his brother, and I peeked outside from where I was, and I could see like close to like 25 people to 30 people outside. Some of my cousins, some of my friends. It was as if the whole village was outside trying to get me out.
Wow. So do you know what happened to the rest of the guys that were in that bus with you? You know, did anybody come to get them? You don't know, do you?
No. I don't know, because what they did after, like, let's say 1 hour, they took us all into one room. When we got into the room, so obviously that was the cell they held people in, because I saw a lot of guys on the floor. They were seated there. In fact, they were feeling comfortable. So it was obvious they've been there for like a day or two. And then it all started making sense that yes, I am here right now. And when I got into where they told us to go into, all other guys were going into the room and sitting down. I was like, I'm going to stand beside this door because I don't understand where I'm at. I'm not supposed to be here, and I'm getting out now. All the other people that were sitting on the floor,
listens to you.
No. 'Cause I'm a big guy, so I'm sure they were.
A big guy.
Yeah.
This is what exactly infuriated them. You know what? So we're going to stop here for now, because obviously there's another segment of the show, and I'm sure that we'll come back to you with some questions. But thank you very much, Toby, for sharing.
You're welcome.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Toby is one of many Nigerian youths that has had a dreadful encounter with the infamous Nigeria Police Force Unit SARS. Unfortunately, some have not been as lucky as Toby, and their lives were cut short. We remember them today and always. The topic remains Nigerian police brutality, where what really needs to give. And joining me in a few minutes to discuss this is someone who has worked in the Nigerian Police Force for decades and is willing to lend his voice. Before I engage this guest, please stay with me as we go on a quick break.
We are the wind in the sails of your business. We are your compass. Chart your course towards your targets. Africa Business Radio. Towards a profitable Africa. We are the wind in the sails of your business. We are your compass. Chart your course towards your targets. Africa Business Radio. Towards a profitable Africa.
Africa is rising, they say. But Africa must rise with its people. There is no Africa without its people. How then do we harness Africa's wealth in people? Through social change and development. Social Conscience with NASA commits to Aspiration 6 of the Africa Agenda 2063 and the Global Development Goals. We advocate social change and development that will inspire the transformation that keeps Africa rising. Join us every week at 6:30 p.m. GMT +1.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, it's still Social Conscience, and the topic remains Nigerian police brutality, what really needs to give. To share his views with us is Prince Adekinte Ademiju Oyekan, PSC, a law graduate from the University of Wales, United Kingdom. He was the former chairman of the Task Force on Petroleum Distribution, in Rivers State and has served in various states and formations, including Police Mobile Force, PMF, Criminal Investigation Department, CID, and Divisional Police Officer, DPO. He was the one-time area commander of Ajaokuta in Kogi State, Assistant Commissioner of Police Operations, Ogun State, and Assistant Commissioner of Police Administration, Kwara State. Prince Oyekan joined the Nigerian Police Force in January 1984 as a Cadet Inspector and retired exactly 35 years later in January 2019 as the Commissioner of Police Training at the Force Headquarters, Abuja. Welcome, Prince Oyekan, and thank you very much for honoring the invitation to lend your voice to the plight of the Nigerian youth at such a time as this. It's my goal to this conversation to leave the audience more enlightened, but more importantly, empowered with the right knowledge. To my listeners, please feel free to weigh in by sending your questions or comments to @AfricaBIZ Radio on Twitter with the hashtag SCWN. Welcome, Prince Oyekan. Over to you.
Thank you for having me. In fact, what happened to the last speaker actually happened to me as well. And that's one of the reasons why I actually joined the police. About 2 or 3 times, they point a gun at you and I felt that, no, that's not the way it's supposed to be done. I decided to join.
Wow. When did this happen to you? And so if we say that you had this experience, then obviously tells me that what we see isn't something that just that.
This was during the civilian regime of Shehu Shagari. And we got to a checkpoint and they told everybody to come out of the car and were saying, why? That's not the way to behave and stuff like that. And you find that they just became aggressive.
Wow.
But, looking into the history books, I discovered that it's because of the way the police was actually created. The police came about in 1861. Okay. And that was with the establishment of 30 men, right? Mm-hmm. But that was exactly after the Metropolitan Police was established in London. The Metropolitan Police was established in the same way the Nigerian police was, but it wasn't so.
Exactly.
It wasn't established like that. And, the police in London was actually made up of locals and residents, English people. Whereas in Nigeria, it started with returning Hausa slaves from Sierra Leone.
Wow.
And that started impacting on it, because they were not indigenous.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you find that when the Metropolitan Service was created, they had permanently appointed and paid constables to protect everyone in the capital. But when the police was established in Lagos, it was to protect and guard British colonialists and British traders. So you had that problem already. It wasn't meant to serve the populace.
The community.
No, it wasn't meant to. Also, you had a situation where in Britain, it had a human face. Yeah. But in Nigeria, in Lagos, it was an oppressive force used to cow the people of Lagos. When Makoski, he was an acting governor then, he actually said that they established the force so that they could have a body of men dissociated from the countries immediately around them. That includes Ajaokuta, Ibadan, and the environs there.
Wow.
And actually use them to suppress those kingdoms, which was very bad, really.
So basically what you're saying is the police force, as it were, and its origins was basically another tool for colonial masters to continue to oppress us, essentially.
That is right, yes. But even when they left, in the 1963 Constitution, which established the police force, it permitted the regional legislature to actually provide for the maintenance of native police. That's the local government police then. Mm-hmm. Now, you know what happened. The traditional authorities and politicians combined together, they turned the native police into agents of repression. So even the traditional authorities and the politicians misused the native authority police, and they had to scrap them when the coup of 66 came in. So these are things that it's really built on oppression. It's not like that in other countries, but that's what we have in Nigeria.
That's what we have. So clearly, the rot is systemic, as we say. It's deep-seated and
it's rooted deeply. Yes.
deeply. Okay, so that takes me to the next question. So you hear the voices of the Nigerian youth today all clamoring for, an overhauling, a reform of the police force. And, we're protesting and waiting to see these changes because we're tired of, talk, no action. And from what I hear you say, the expectation we have is not something that is going to happen in a couple of days. However, I'm going to jump to a question that I wasn't looking to ask now because I was going to go, step by step. But what's the government, what's the presidency, what are they going to do for us to see that, this time it's not all talk? Understanding that this problem is deep-seated, but we need to start to see action. We need to start to see some level of difference that makes us feel that, they're actually doing something. Because as it is now, they're protesting peacefully, but there's still policemen that are still, manhandling people on the streets.
Yeah, well, the IG has already given directive that no protester who is, who is not causing any problems should not be touched. They should allow them, those who are peacefully, yeah. Okay. But I'm not in Nigeria, so I can't really follow the trend.
That's true.
But the issue is he's trying his best. He's getting advice left, right, and center, and he has to shift. At the same time, his bosses in Abuja are also on his neck.
Right.
You saw what happened at the National Assembly. They don't want that to continue. They don't want disruption. But there's no way this thing can go forward without some concrete things being put in place.
So what are these concrete things that you talk about? Well,
that they've given, the youth have given their own 5-point demands.
Which is now 7.
They've agreed to all. They want restitution. They've agreed to that. They want families of those injured and all that to be adequately compensated. They're on that. But the main change, I don't think it's just SARS. The police itself generally needs to be overhauled.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's almost 200 years old. It needs to be overhauled. They need to do something systematic to it.
Yeah.
There's no way you can continue. Look into immediate skirmishes between the community and the police, between the youths and the police, between the businessmen and the police. So that if there's anything going wrong, if they're going out of the mandate, then somebody, they're already there to say, no, he didn't do the right thing. And then the proper sanctions will follow. Don't forget that the core principles behind policing are the prevention of crime and disorder. Now, this is a job that you and I would do ordinarily if we had the time. But people are paid to do it. And if they're going to be paid to do it, you also have to give them the requisite tools to be able to carry out that function. You cannot just say, okay, you go empty-handed and, police an area. You can't do it. You have to give him the tools with which he's going to do it. The walkie-talkie.
Okay, so that takes me to another question, which is around why police carry firearms. And you sort of then introduced that because you say because people carry, all sorts of weapons around.
Yeah.
I didn't quite know that we carried weapons around like that because in the 80s, right, police officers were actually not usually armed and they were only issued weapons when required for specific assignments or missions. So why did that change?
Okay, a lot of things happened, and which also brought about this. You see, one thing you need to remember is that after the Civil War, there were proliferation of arms.
Okay.
And then there were a lot of joblessness and stuff like that. So robberies became the in thing. And they discovered that, look, even the weapons that were being brought into the country then were more sophisticated
than the ones the police had.
They had the Mark III or Mark IV or some old weapon that from the Second World War that they were using. But they had to upgrade them. They started by giving them some military weapons that the military were using, which wasn't help issues because that was still cock and shoot. So they gave them automatic weapons, which made it easier for the police to counter some of these things. But the problem is the lack of modern-day crime-fighting equipment and reduced funding of the police means they have to make do with whatever training or equipment they have. You look at opportunity cost and the scale of economies and then decide on what you can afford. If policemen are to be armed, like I said, the tear gas and stuff like that, lack of funds means the police are given only lethal weapons to operate, which is wrong. You're not even giving them pistols. You're giving them high caliber weapons, which means that There's no stopgap.
Why does lack of funds mean they only get lethal weapons? Is it more cost effective to have
because
that?
You look at what you can buy that can do both jobs or several jobs.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons. Then remember that Africa generally had a proliferation of arms left over from different civil wars on the continent and collapsed regimes and militias as well as rebels.
Right.
These arms have found their way into Nigeria through unscrupulous Nigerians. Also, the police lost one of its most important departments, the Criminal Intelligence Section, which was removed to form the old NSO, to metamorphose into the DSS now. And that also brought about lack of intelligence for the police to be able to perform their duties. So in order not to be caught unawares, you find that they're going to use their most lethal weapons rather than...
just to protect themselves, self-preservation.
And also, when they did that, they didn't do certain things. You're supposed to have given room for de-escalation methods. That is where you find that, you see a lot of people arguing. Even me, I swear I can never argue with somebody who's carrying a gun, unless I'm carrying a gun myself. But you see people arguing with somebody with a gun. You don't know his state of mind. You don't know what's going on with him as well. And then you start arguing with him. If there's no way you can de-escalate that situation if two people are shouting at each other, it becomes drastic. So, in giving them those weapons, they should have done certain things to make sure that it doesn't get to the stage of actually using those weapons. Because I tell you, what's the point of giving somebody a weapon if he's not going to use it?
Wow. So you see, that brings me to the question around accountability for the use of their arms. So if I go out, and is there any sort of process in place that sort of measures how you use your bullets so that you come back and say, I used 2 bullets because so and so happened, and I write a report? And
these are government property. Just like any government property, if you use, you're supposed to account for it. I've given you 10 bullets and you return 10 bullets to me.
Good question.
And yet there's been firing. What do you think has been happening?
So, but then, am I appraised as a police officer on, the number of criminals I'm able to...
No. That's not how it's done. For example, if you see what's happening in Abuja, they're given assignments, go out and do your job. If they do it properly, right, there's no noise. If they do it wrong, that's where the problem starts.
What is properly?
Now, if they do their job properly, that is, you go out, you make an arrest, everybody agrees that you made a proper arrest, there's no noise.
How do you know that I've made a proper arrest? You just heard Toby's story. They're telling them that...
That's what I'm saying. Toby does not come back and tell the world I was brutalized. Prince Oyekan does not come back and tell the world they slapped him. Then you know that the job was done properly. But where somebody comes out and says, no, I don't agree, something's gone wrong there, then you know that job's not been done properly. Because everybody's been able to tell their story now.
We've been telling our stories. People just never listen, and people started getting scared. So I see the police, I'm afraid. And I can't even go back and say this is what happened, because they're going to threaten me and the rest of my family.
Unfortunately, I know that people have come to me and have gone back and made sure that the proper thing was done. The issue is, if you get to an officer, 9 times out of 10, something will be done. It's getting to the senior officer that's the issue. And just like Toby said, they were able to reach somebody and something was done before something negative happened there.
But Toby is one of the privileged Nigerians. And I say that because he had people that had access to a senior officer. So to the Nigerian on the road that does not have this kind of access, what's the process for me to reach a senior officer to tell them my story and share that?
It should really never get to that stage. Unfortunately, it does. But what I would recommend the government do is have a body, an advisory body that complains of maltreatment from any of the security agencies.
It's an independent body.
An independent body made up of civilians in that community, not just the rich or what to do, the mechanics, the downfall driver, all of them. So that if something is going wrong, they can go there and say, see what they did to Lagbaja, and something will be done. It won't be covered. But if it's still the same way, before you get to a senior officer, something could go wrong. That's all I'm saying. You should not have to go to a senior officer for you to get redressed. When I say senior officer, I'm talking of those wearing stars on their shoulder or the divisional. Right. But in other countries, once you see a sergeant, you should be able to tell the sergeant, this is what the corporal. But I don't know.
Even you sound frustrated yourself. Okay, so if we're talking about the quality of people in the force, what's the recruitment process like? So it looks like the police force is like where I don't have any other option. I just need a means of livelihood. Then I go work in the police. And then I've heard stories of people paying to join the force, and you have to pay that money back. And then you're not paid well enough. And then they put guns in your hand. What is that recruitment process and what needs to change about it?
All right. Now, there are different people in the world and people do things differently. Not everybody does it the same way. But when we had this last recruitment we had, not this one that the IG and the Police Service Commission are fighting over, the one we did in 2018,
okay,
it was open to all able-bodied Nigerians who have the requisite certificates and body structure. Then a selection process starts. This is to determine if you have the requisite certificates, temperament, can read and write, basic English, understand additions and subtracting, have the height and chest expansions, etc.
What about your mental health?
Yeah, it's inclusive, but you have the medical department doing its own. If you are coming in as a driver or as an artisan or whatever, you have the requisite experts checking that you actually know what you're doing. You wouldn't want somebody to say he's an electrician, then he goes and gets himself electrocuted and stuff like that. Now, if you are selected, then you go through a period of training depending on if you're a specialist or general police officer. This can be 3 to 9 months.
Okay.
Now, it sounds easy, doesn't it? That's how it should be. That's how it should be. You now find that members of the House of Assembly, for example, will send names. The presidency will send names. The incumbent officers there will send names. Your seniors, your juniors, everybody sends names. Please. So you can't say no. You have to look at, I think what they did was 75% for those online and 25% for everybody else. Even then, they will send you those of their children who don't want to listen at home. And when you interview such people, this one's going to be a problem. You have to send them back. You become an enemy.
But what do you do? So you have to basically your hands are tied.
Because of my background, I know they couldn't do anything to me, but I did what I did. Even with the National Assembly, I did what I did. But I'm just saying that if you can't, you succumb and then you bring in referral, people who don't even know the left from the right, and the problem starts. And that's why we are where we are today. So until they stop some of these things of just imposing their own candidates on the police and then fighting over who should control enlistment and stuff like that, then we'll get to where we're going. But without that, you're just going to have the same garbage in, garbage out.
That's right. So, but then, in terms of disciplinary actions and, when police...
I'm sorry, there's still something I wanted to talk about. Now,
okay, please do.
From constables to sergeants, they're supposed to re-enlist. That is, they reapply after 2 years and after 5 years and after 10 years, and then they're taken up to the 35 years. The issue is nobody does that again. So nobody really monitoring some of these things. Okay. So that those that have bad character will not be re-enlisted. It's the easiest way out. You cannot sack anybody really easily. They'll go to court. But with that, you can say services no longer required.
Like after 2 years, there's a re-evaluation.
And then continue and stuff like that. Then after 5 years, whether you still want to, if you're still being a good NCO or sergeant. Now, you also have the federal government. They've abandoned that and followed the federal government upper system, which is the annual performance evaluation report to appraise policemen, and that goes up from constable to DIG. A bad report could cause such policeman his promotion, and it's also used to determine whether he's fit to hold that position he's in, or even if such policeman needs more training. But even if you put it there that a policeman needs more training, it's all down to money. Fund. And then, can I afford to allow, I don't have enough men. Will I allow one to go again? Who's going to do the job of that person and stuff like that? Now, the dismissal process in the MPF, it's really straightforward. Policemen who are found wanting, I'm just going to make it easy so that I don't get verbose and start putting sections and stuff like that. But it's in the Police Act. Anybody wants to read it up. And that's online as well. Okay. So this orderly room trial is like a magistrate's court. Witnesses are called, like if Toby could recognize any of the policemen and wanted to go further with it, they would have what you call an adjudicating officer. He's like a magistrate. He'd sit down And then he did ask questions, both from Toby and any other witnesses he brings. And if there's any other evidence, they tender it. If that, what we call a defaulter, any policeman undergoing such trial is called a defaulter. If he's found guilty of the offense, of that offense, then the adjudicating officer will recommend he be awarded with any of the following punishments: reduction in rank, fatigue, severe reprimand, withholding of increment, that's monetary. Now, if the offense is also a serious one, such as murder or robbery or stealing, he could also be charged to court. That's the simple process of how a policeman can easily get himself out of job and into prison.
Wow.
So if, for example, Toby had reported that policeman, that's what would have happened. He would have been taken for trial. If they had found him guilty there, of any of these punishments could be meted out to him. Don't forget, sometimes, we also tell the policemen, some of what they do, they need to be careful.
Yeah.
Where they're collecting money on the road, for example. Because they have a gun with them, it could be viewed as robbery. So they need to be very careful. So that's grounds
for dismissal?
Yes. So they need to be very careful sometimes with some of the things they're doing. If they meet an officer who's not going to take that nonsense.
Wow. Okay, so listeners at home, everywhere in the world, listening is still Social Conscience with NASA, and we're talking Nigerian police brutality, what really needs to give. And the guest in the studio with me today is Prince Oyekan, who's been in the police force for 35 years. So to just sort of then ask about indiscriminate police posting, and this is just basically me thinking, would it be better, would we have more police as our friends if we had indigenous police officers? So if I'm from a particular local government area and I'm a police officer, that's where I'm going to serve and basically operate. Does that then make me less...
We already have something like that. You have catchment area. I think accessible to sergeant, you're supposed to be in your catchment area for 10 years or something like that. But the issue is Nigeria. The reason for not having local government police in the first place, or local police or state police, is that it's not just that of misuse, but having seen what happened with local government police in those days, where it was an offense to have firewood in your house, and you go and drop firewood there, and you're in trouble. You're talking about, you heard what Toby said about, we'll put cartridges in front of you, and that's the end.
Exactly.
So, if you have a mix, and that's why nowadays what you see is outside Yoruba Igbo always been involved in the nonsense, getting into trouble as policemen. They always get into trouble. If it was just one group, one clan,
right,
it wouldn't work. I wouldn't recommend that. The mixture that you have helps promote unity, and at the same time, because if somebody doesn't like a Fulani man, for example, in Ijebu land, let's just say, and they don't like what Fulani man has been doing with his cattle, they can decide to just finish him and nobody will know what's happening. So, but if it's a mixture, it's difficult. It really is difficult to just let them finish your own people like that.
That's true.
That's my personal. I wouldn't suggest, making a state of origin or local government of origin and stuff like that.
Prerequisite for where you're posted. It's
at the moment, Nigeria is too volatile at the moment for that kind of thing. Well, to me, that's my personal view. I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody. I'm speaking as a retired police officer.
You are retired.
Things going wrong there.
And letting your voice, absolutely, and we appreciate that. Okay, so I'm just going to ask about SARS. We've heard that they were working beyond their mandates. So we understand the primary mandate they had, and on what basis did they go beyond that mandate? Who gave them the authority to start to then go after cybercrime, Yahoo boys?
Exactly, that's a very good question. Who gave them the authority to do more than they're doing? Somebody posted something. I was reading something earlier on the internet, because no senior officer can come out to say, I authorized them, because he knows the implication of that. Just like
so you're going to keep quiet?
Look, whatever action, on the basis that he's been trained and knows what he's doing. Let me put it this way. There is a fundamental difference between the domestic relation of servant and master and that of the holder of a public office.
And what we have is definitely a servant-master one.
A police constable's authority is original, not delegate, and is exercised at his own discretion by virtue of his office. He is a ministerial officer exercising statutory rights independently of any contract. Nevertheless, they are accountable to the law and are subject to discipline and administrative control where they go outside their mandate. Because of what you call vicarious liability,
Right.
it is difficult for any officer to claim or to accept that he authorized SARS to go after what is not robbery, kidnapping, or murder, or weapons, or where they have weapons. It's nobody's going to accept that they gave them that assignment.
So were they acting on their own judgment and of their free
They have
will?
to
Which
account
then means
for
that.
their actions. That's the thing. It's an individual thing. They have.
So
to
where does the governance come in? Where does the governance come in? So if I have to account, but I'm not accounting, right? And nobody's going to come and say I authorized it. So what happens?
What happens? You see, that's why, look, if there's no complaint, that's what I was trying to tell you. If there's no complaint, there's no offense, there's nothing. It's people are complaining now and they're seeing it and they're like, okay, now you want to complain. Governors, set up a panel. You have a DIG in the one in Lagos. He is a very good police officer.
Right.
He knows what to do. He knows where to catch them when they start making their excuses.
Right.
Let them now, they've started it properly. They are going to complain that, yes, SARS did this to this person, he did this to that person. And then they're going to ask that SARS man, who sent you? And that is where they will see them looking up and looking down. Knowing quite well that they ought not to have been doing that.
Okay. So going to they ought not to have been doing that. So we can talk about some of the triggers, and we understand that it's obviously a lot of people have sort of said it's the welfare for the police is obviously not where it's supposed to be. You don't think that's enough reason?
Welfare.
They said they're poorly paid.
We are not a slave regime. It has nothing to do with paid pay as far as I'm concerned. Let me tell you the truth. Police are not paid properly. And maybe that is just one small minuscule aspect of it. But anything anybody does is discretionary. Should I do this or should I not do that? Alhaji Kumasi, the late Inspector General of Police, when he was Commissioner of Police Kwara, asked me one question. He said, Prince, do you know the duty you're even performing? And I gave the usual protection of life and property, the investigation and traffic control. He said, no. Do you realize that you're doing the work of angels? And I stood there for a few minutes thinking about it. And he said, but remember, the devil also has his own demons. You know what that means? If
So it's basically the power is in here.
Good. It's in your hands to do good or do bad. Don't blame the government. That's why I said it's an individual thing. Whoever is doing it knows he's not supposed to do it. He's been trained not to do that. And if they do it and they're caught, the consequences are what's there.
Wow. So you say salaries are just a minuscule part of it, and it's basically up to the individual.
I'm telling you that salaries are not enough. But if it were the case, would it be only SARS who's carrying guns and disturbing people over the place?
You're right. And so you see, it then goes back to the recruitment and the kind of people that, we're putting into the police force.
Definitely.
So, you see? So if we know this, that, at the end of the day, it's not about your remuneration, and it's also about your own personal integrity and your strength of mind. Because I must also say that we can't rule out the place of frustration when your kids have not eaten, you live in some squalid apartments, all those things, contribute. You're right. Okay, so I have questions.
What I'm saying is not primary.
Yeah. But do you think we'll see a significant difference if we change that? If the government came out today and says we're increasing the salaries of the police officers, do you think it'll make some difference?
There will definitely be a drop, but you see, some people are going to in that road.
Okay. You're right.
So there would be a significant change because people would be more relaxed. There wouldn't be this do or die thing. People would be more relaxed. Look at the houses some of the policemen are living in. I exactly. Live in the barracks. I'd rather live outside because the level of poverty there too at times it's disheartening.
It is.
And like I said, we all come from different backgrounds, and
that's right.
Seeing your fellow policeman go through hardship and all that is not easy. But there should be avenues for that. I think they're going to start redressing it now because a lot of voice has gone out to change real.
And we're hoping to see that. Okay, I'm going to take a couple questions from the audience. So I have someone who's asking about police officers that are dismissed and end up going to another state to get recruited. What are the checks and balances?
No, it's not.
That?
It's difficult.
It doesn't work that way.
We submit fingerprints, and they're checked.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're checked. I'm not saying one or two can't fall through the
cracks. Mm-hmm.
But it's very difficult for somebody. Your classmate will see you. It's going to be difficult. If I know that you're dismissed, there was one that tried to play me in Kwara. He was dismissed, came back, and said that he's been reinstated. And I said, okay, I asked for certain documents from him. He couldn't produce it. I checked records in Abuja. Before I knew it, he ran away. But we seized his vehicle at that stage. But he ran away. He jumped over the fence, took off. So you detect some of these, and it's not easy to go and do that. It's not like they're different police forces. It's one police force.
Yeah. Speaking of one police force, do you think the way the police force is structured, like that very centralized structure, does it play a role in the challenges that we're having now? Do you think if we were decentralized, there'll be a better governance system, if you like, or basically just an improvement?
You see, when you talk of decentralization, I've told you, are we mature enough? I think more power should be given to the commissioners of police of the states to be able to function without every 10 seconds running to Abuja.
Going to Abuja, correct.
But, they need to formulate what aspect of it is free to do and what is not. And don't forget, look, when we joined the police, we had in the division, even as an inspector of police, I had a vehicle. There were lorries to convey the men. Yeah. The DPO had his own car. There were, vehicles for you to do your job. But over the years, these things got eroded. It was all a case of funding. There's no money. Speaking
of funding, there's a trust fund I hear about, and that's supposed to come from private sector, what happens to that money? How is it being used?
I don't know if they've actually started it. I'm sure they haven't really started that. But when they do, it should help, because when you think of 0.005% from the Federation account, from businesses, from this, from that, and it's meant to cater for the police, I don't mind you. All security services that are meant to benefit from it. So.
Wow. Okay. Unfortunately, we're almost out of time. And so if you could just say, I know time flies when you're having fun. If you could just say in 1 minute, what would you say to the Nigerians that are out there clamoring for change and just basically insistent on seeing that change in 1 minute?
Yeah, well, I would advise them not to get sidetracked, and I'd advise them not to allow themselves to be used. They should know that it's not easy to just, take a step back and look at where the police has been coming from and then suddenly just say overnight, okay, this is what we're going to do. You need a proper think tank. Sit down there and talk about what's going to happen. Give them a chance. Give them a breathing space. Maybe missteps will start to take place. So they should be careful out there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A very enlightening discussion. I've also learned some things that I didn't know about the police force. So thank you. Toby, if you can just share with us in 1 minute, what would you like to say to your fellow youths protesting out there? Just 1 minute, please.
Yes, I would just like to tell them to protest, not to do a concert, not be troublesome, don't be violent, don't be aggressive. Just stick to the plan to protest or enters. And so we demand a response from the government. And if we've gotten that, as our guest has said, or your guest have said, that we should give them a chance to do what they need to do. And if we don't see any traction from that, we can come back to the streets and start protesting again.
Of some of the victims that we have lost to police brutality, because this cry for justice is also for them. Ifeoma Abugu, raped and murdered in detention. Ayomide Taiwo, he didn't give a 50 naira bribe. Frederick from Edo State, who argued with the policeman. Chibuke Anams, he was sitting with his friend in a guest house. Kolade Johnson, at a football viewing center. Tina Ezekwe, she was standing at the bus stop. May the souls of these and other faithful departed continue to rest in peace. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a somewhat sobering conversation today, but also enlightening, one that we must have nonetheless. As we focus on the youth this month, watch out for another insightful and action-provoking edition of Social Conscience with NASA. Same time, same station next week. And thank you for staying with me. I am yours conscientiously.
Africa is rising, they say, but Africa must rise with its people. There is no Africa without its people. How then do we harness Africa's wealthy people? Through social change and development. Social Conscience with NASA commits to Aspiration 6 of the Africa Agenda 2063 and the Global Development Goals. We advocate social change and development that will inspire the transformation that keeps Africa rising. Join us every week at 6:30 p.m. GMT +1.
We are the wind in the sails of your business. We are your compass. Chart your course towards your targets. Africa Business Radio. Towards a profitable Africa.